This happened just a few weeks ago. I had just moved to a small cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I'm a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer. I thought the peace and quiet would spark my creativity. Living in a cabin felt like an adventure. I had some experience with camping, but a cabin was a bigger step. I was excited to make it my own. One evening, I was working at my desk. I had a sketchpad and my laptop open. The sun was setting and the sky turned orange and purple. I sipped coffee, feeling good. The only sounds were the rustling leaves outside and my fingers tapping on the keyboard. It seemed like a perfect place to let my ideas flow. I was focused, my mind lost in colors and shapes. But on my third night alone, something changed. I was sketching when I heard it, creaking floorboards above me. I froze. I thought the attic was empty. The cabin had been quiet until then. The creaking was slow, like someone walking. My heart began to race. I shook my head, telling myself it was just the wind, but the sound kept coming, step after step. I stood up and walked to the bottom of the stairs. "Hello?" I called out. Silence answered me. I didn't want to go up there. I felt a chill go down my spine. What if there was something? I took a deep breath and turned back to my work, but unease settled in. As the week went on, things got stranger. I noticed shadows moving through the trees outside. One night, as I looked out, I could swear I saw something watching me. When I blinked, it was gone. I felt cold sweat on my forehead. The hairs on my neck stood up. I looked back at my sketchpad, but I couldn't focus. I started to see odd drawings appear. They looked like faces, twisted and strange. I didn't remember sketching them. Then one evening, I heard whispers. They floated in from the dark forest. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the voices wouldn't stop. My heart raced again. "It's just the wind," I said to myself. But the whispers felt real. The air grew colder, heavier. I thought about leaving, but I didn't want to run away. That night, I decided to close the curtains. I didn't want to see outside anymore. I sat in silence, but the whispers grew louder. It was unsettling. I told myself to breathe, to stay calm. But then a loud bang came from the attic. I jumped up and yelled, "Who's there?" I was met with silence. I could feel the fear creeping in. The noise had jolted me. I slowly opened the attic door, my hands shaking. Then I saw it. A shadow moved across the far wall, too fast for my eyes to follow. I blinked, and it was gone. But I felt eyes on me. I stood frozen, staring into the darkness. I struggled to breathe. Something was watching me. I backed away slowly. Maybe it was time to leave this cabin after all. The next morning, I woke up exhausted. Sleep had eluded me after the night's unsettling events. I felt drained. A heaviness settled in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that the cabin was no longer just a simple getaway. Something was off, and it was making me uneasy. I decided to go for a hike to clear my head. Fresh air might help, I thought. I grabbed my water bottle and headed out. The rays of sunlight broke through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the path. I tried to relax, to focus on the beauty around me. But even the chirping birds felt muted against the nagging fear in my mind. As I walked deeper into the woods, I noticed a clearing I hadn't seen before. I stepped into it and my breath caught in my throat. In the center stood a large, rotting tree, its bark peeling away in long strips. I moved closer and saw strange carvings etched into the wood. They appeared to be symbols, but they were unlike anything I'd ever seen. I felt a chill as I traced my fingers over the markings. They looked old, ancient even. A part of me was intrigued, but another part screamed at me to leave. I backed away slowly, but before I could turn, a low whisper floated through the air. Just like the ones from last night. My heart thundered in my chest. "Get out," it seemed to say. I turned and stumbled back along the trail, my legs feeling unsteady. The sun felt dimmer as I hurried back to the cabin, as if the darkness of the woods was following me. Each crunch of leaves underfoot felt amplified, echoing in my ears. When I got back, I slammed the door shut behind me. I leaned against it, trying to calm my racing heart. But I barely had a moment of peace before I noticed something on my sketchpad. It was open, pages fluttering. I never left it like that. I walked over cautiously. The drawings I thought were just figments of my imagination were there, faces, distorted and twisted, facing me as if calling for help. Panic rose within me. I flipped through the pages, heart pounding louder with each turn. That's when I saw it. One drawing stood out, more vivid than the rest. It was a face, but this time it bore a striking resemblance to the figure I had seen in the attic last night. Then my phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up, hoping it was from a friend. Instead, it was a notification, a message from the cabin's rental service. Please beware of the local folklore. Legends warn of an ancient spirit that watches over the woods. The words sent a chill through me. My eyes widened in disbelief. As I set the phone down, I heard a loud thud from the attic again. The whispers rose, spinning into a chaotic murmur, filling the air around me. It felt like the walls were closing in. With dread pooling in my stomach, I knew I had to face what was up there. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and opened the attic door once more. I stepped into the attic, the air turning stale and heavy as I climbed the stairs. The light streaming in through the small window barely illuminated the space, but I could see the old wooden beams and the piles of forgotten boxes. Once more, I was struck by that uneasiness, like I wasn't alone. "Hello," I called, my voice shaky and small against the silence. No response came. Only the sound of my heart pounding echoed around me. I grabbed a flashlight from one of the boxes and flicked it on, the beam cutting through the dimness. My fingers trembled as I swept the light across the room. Then I saw it, a movement in the corner. I turned the flashlight, but in an instant, whatever had been there vanished. A rush of adrenaline coursed through me. I took a cautious step forward, my breath catching in my throat. The whispers were no longer distant. They surrounded me, curling into my ears like frost on a winter morning. "Leave, leave, leave," they chanted. I shook my head, pushing back against the panic surging within me. I needed to find out what was happening. I scanned my surroundings, finally settling my eyes on an old trunk covered in dust. It looked untouched for years. Gathering my courage, I approached it, feeling a pull as if something inside was calling to me. I lifted the lid slowly, the hinges creaking like a mournful sigh. Inside, I discovered faded photographs and yellowed letters. I picked up one of the photos, heart halting as I recognized the faces. They looked similar to the one from my drawings, the figure with hollow eyes and a twisted grin. "What is this?" I breathed, fumbling through the trunk. Each item sent shivers through me. Then I stumbled upon a small, intricately carved idol resembling the symbols from the rotting tree outside. My stomach dropped. Questions flooded my mind. Why was this here? Who had owned these things? Suddenly, I heard a loud crash from below. My pulse raced, fear doubling as I hesitated. Was someone in the cabin? I knew I should have gone to check, but curiosity gripped me. I had to know more about this spirit and the connection to the drawings. The whispers gained urgency. "Get out, get out." They filled my head, drowning out every rational thought. Then everything went dark. Fear paralyzed me. I swung the flashlight, but the beam flickered and died, plunging me into darkness. I cursed under my breath, terrified. Just when I thought I might scream, I heard a new sound, a low growl, echoing from the shadows. I stumbled back, heart racing, when suddenly the attic door slammed shut. I could hear footsteps approaching. Someone, or something, was in the house. My breath quickened, every instinct telling me to fight or flee. I pressed my back against the wall, desperate to think of an escape. The whispers turned into frantic cries. "Help us, help us!" they yelled. I felt the weight of countless eyes watching me, their pleas vibrating through the air. I was trapped in the attic, surrounded by darkness and shadows. Then, the door creaked open again. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway. I couldn't see their face, but I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, my voice a fragile thread in the suffocating darkness. The figure stepped forward, and the attic filled with an icy chill. I recognized that familiar, twisted grin. I froze, unable to move or even blink. The figure advanced, and I caught a glimpse of familiar features, hollow eyes, and that unmistakable twisted grin. My throat tightened. This wasn't just a ghostly apparition. It was the thing from my drawings, the one I couldn't shake from my mind. "Why are you here?" I managed to choke out. I fought against my instinct to run. I needed answers, though I regretted it as soon as I asked. Its mouth moved, but no sound came. The air turned thick, pressing in around me. I felt dizzy as the whispers grew louder, demanding, "Help us! Help us!" They transformed into agonized wails, clawing at my consciousness, making it hard to think straight. Then it happened. The figure lunged, hands outstretched toward me. I stumbled back, my heel catching on a loose board. I fell hard, landing next to the trunk I had just opened. Panic surged through me. As I scrambled to my feet, the chaos settled into sudden silence. I couldn't comprehend why it had stopped. The figure now loomed over the trunk, its form barely illuminated by the slivers of light slipping in through the dusty window. "Get out!" I screamed into the void, my voice firm despite my fear. I couldn't let it envelop me. I reached instinctively for the idol I had seen earlier. It felt warm against my palm, a strange comfort in this nightmare. "Leave them alone!" I shouted again, and for a moment the room stilled. The figure hesitated, its grin wavering. Just then, the old trunk beside me flew open as if beckoned by my words. I risked a glance inside, mouth dropping open in shock. The photographs glowed softly now, and the letters seemed to shift as I stared. Names began to surface in my mind, names I'd never known before. Each one echoed the whispers dancing in my ears. The people in the photos, the ones begging for help. "It's not just me, is it?" I said slowly, piecing things together. "You're trying to reach them." The figure jerked as if I had hit a nerve, the smile faltering. I could feel the turmoil swirling inside it and the anguish of the countless souls tied to this place. My heart ached for them, for understanding. But just as the moment crystallized into clarity, a loud crash resounded from below again. This time it felt closer, like footsteps charging up the stairs. My blood ran cold. I didn't know if it was just the original figure that haunted this space or if something else, something worse, was coming after me. I turned back to the figure, desperation bleeding through my voice. "Help me, help them. We can break this cycle." It paused, the icy chill starting to fade as its gaze flickered towards the attic door. Time seemed to stretch painfully thin. I tried to push the idol into its hands, sensing it held the key to freeing them. The crash came again, louder this time, and the door shuddered on its hinges. I felt the presence of whatever was lurking outside the attic, and it wasn't friendly. "Please," I whispered. "There's still time." Just then, I realized I wasn't alone in my fight. The whispers quieted, waiting for an answer. The figure looked back at me, a glimmer of hope in its hollow eyes. That's when I saw it. A flicker of light behind the figure, igniting the memory of the photos, the names, my skin prickling with sudden clarity. The answers were within reach, but I had to act fast. Before I could think, I lunged, desperate to bridge the connection as the door splintered and flew open, an unseen force spilling into the attic. The force that spilled into the attic was like a tidal wave. I was knocked backward, hitting the wall hard. My breath came in ragged gasps, and my heart raced as I struggled to comprehend what was happening. The figure was still there, but now it was multiplying. Shadows danced around me, twisting and flickering in the newfound chaos. I could see faint outlines of other figures, each one marked by the same hollow gaze and tortured smile that had haunted my dreams. "Help us!" they echoed in a dissonant chorus, their voices blending into a cacophony of despair. It was disorienting, and I felt the weight of despair pressing down harder with each word. I pushed myself up from the floor, my eyes darting around the attic in search of an escape. The trunk was now glowing brighter, revealing the names I had seen earlier. They flickered with urgency, as if calling to me. In that moment, I realized that they were more than mere names. They were the key. "Stop!" I shouted. "If you're all trapped, I can help." I grasped the idol tighter, hoping for some insight or guidance. Its warmth seemed to pulse under my fingers, urging me to act. The whirlwind of shadows slowed slightly, their collective gaze shifting towards me, a flicker of hope breaking through their anguish. I needed to focus, to think. The whispers swirled in my mind, and I longed for clarity. "Name yourselves," I demanded, my voice steadying. "Tell me who you are." I felt the urgency rising in my chest as I wondered if this act was enough to bridge the connection. One by one, names erupted from the shadows, overlapping and tangled but still discernible. I caught a few. Elena, Thomas, Richard. Each name felt like a breadcrumb in a dark forest, leading me somewhere. Then I noticed something at the edge of the attic floor. A piece of paper fluttered and somehow glowed among the debris. I darted toward it, heart pounding. As I reached down, a shock ran through me at the sight, a handwritten list of names, each one linked to the faces I now recognized from the photographs. "Is this your truth?" I whispered, entranced. "Is this how I can help you?" The shadows surged, their voices rising like a fierce tide. "Release us!" they screamed. "Break the bond!" I looked back at the figure, its twisted grin transformed into something softer, a plea, a desire to be free. In my gut, I felt the connection tightening. The idol shook in my grip, urging me to make a choice. Before I could respond, the attic door slammed shut, echoing like a death knell. My heart raced. Whatever was forcing its way into the attic had finally arrived, and I was trapped. "No!" I shouted, panic rising as the air thickened once more. I felt an abrupt shift in energy, and the whispers turned into screams. The shadows began to swirl faster, and I could see a darkness forming, a new threat emerging. "Fight it!" I yelled into the chaos. "We can do this together." But as the darkness loomed over us, I realized that time was running out. I had to find a way to help these lost souls, or risk becoming just another name on their endless list. And that's when the shadows began to reach for me. Panic surged through me as the shadows extended their twisted limbs, reaching for my skin and seeking to drag me into their abyss. I stumbled back, clutching the idol, my fingers digging into its surface as if it was my only lifeline. "No!" I gasped, shoving against the wall to put distance between myself and the encroaching darkness. In a flash of desperation, I turned my gaze toward the glowing trunk. "Help me!" I shouted, hoping the ancient artifact would somehow act as a shield. The glow intensified, spilling light that scattered the shadows, if only for a moment. "Do you see us?" one of the figures cried out, the voice surprisingly clear amid the cacophony. It was Elena, her spectral face etched with both fear and longing. "We are not the threat. It's him." She pointed past me, and I felt the air grow heavier. I hesitated, glancing behind me. A deeper darkness swirled near the attic door, something far more menacing than the shadows around me. It pulsed like a living thing. "Elena, who is it?" I shouted as I tried to shake off the dread wrapping around my throat. "The warden," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising storm of screams. "He keeps us bound. You must break his hold." I steadied myself, drawing from the warmth of the idol. I'll break it, I promised, though inside I felt unsteady. I'll do whatever it takes. The shadows surged again, louder and more frantic. "The names!" they cried. "Use the names!" The glowing list of names was still in reach, and the moment I grasped it, the ambiance shifted. The trunk vibrated, and the air crackled with energy. Names leaped into my thoughts, each one a lifeline. "Elena, Thomas, Richard, I call on you," I shouted, feeling the names pulse in my grip. "I command you to be free." But as I called out, the warden's presence loomed larger. The dark mass grew, creating a suffocating atmosphere. I could feel its intent, a personal vendetta against me. My heart raced, every instinct telling me to flee, but how could I abandon those who sought freedom? Suddenly, the shadowy figures erupted into motion, swirling together as if forming a barrier between me and the warden. "You cannot have her!" Eleanor screamed, her voice laced with determination. "You do not own us any longer." That's when I caught sight of the idol glowing fiercely in my hand, the warmth turning to heat. In that instant, everything clicked. Maybe the idol wasn't just a tool but a link, a conduit for their power. "Together," I shouted, feeling the unity of their presence, "we can push him back." As I focused on the idol, I could feel the energies of their names merging with mine. I commanded them to join forces against the encroaching darkness. A radiant wave of light burst forth from the trunk, crashing into the warden. "No!" he howled, the sound jarring. But the shadows twisted with newfound strength, and I felt the bond seeping into my very core. Then, everything went dark. I woke up with a jolt. Darkness enveloped me, thick and suffocating. Confusion clouded my mind as I tried to sort through the moment I had just been in. The noise of the shadows had vanished, replaced by an eerie silence. My heart raced, and I pushed myself up, scanning the room for any sign of movement. The idol was still clutched in my hand, but its glow had dimmed to a mere flicker. "Hello?" I called out, my voice quivering. No answer. Panic threatened to take hold again, but I forced myself to breathe. "Elena." I tried her name, hoping to conjure her presence. As the seconds passed, I felt a growing sense of unease. I had been surrounded by those lost souls, fighting the warden, and now, nothing. Then I noticed something at the periphery of my vision, a faint outline of a figure standing in the corner of the attic. I squinted, my heart pounding once more. "Who's there?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. The figure slowly stepped forward into the faint light. Relief washed over me when I realized it was Elena. "Thank God," I said, my voice shaking. "What happened? Where's the warden?" She looked different, more solid, as if the shadows had loosened their grip on her. "We pushed him back, but it's temporary. He's not gone, just waiting for a moment to strike again." Her expression was grave. "You need to stay focused, or he'll reclaim his power over us." How do I do that? The uncertainty clawed at my insides. I don't even know what I'm up against. Elena hesitated, glancing around as if she expected the darkness to rise again at any moment. "You have the idol. It links you to us. But you must find the source of the warden's strength. The names are more than just words, they are keys. If you can uncover the truth behind them, you can end his hold forever." I felt a rush of determination. The names were tied to their lives, and if I could understand their stories, maybe I could break the cycle. "I'll find them," I vowed, my grip tightening around the idol. "I'll find a way to free you all." But just as I started to feel a surge of hope, the attic door creaked open on its own. My heart skipped a beat and I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. The darkness thickened once more. Someone was in the house. "Stay close to me," Elena urged, but I could feel the panic edging into her voice. The door swung wider, revealing a shadowy figure silhouetted against the dim light of the hallway outside. "Who are you?" I shouted, backing away, already sensing that whatever came through that door wasn't friendly. "I've come for the idol," the figure rumbled, its voice low and chilling. "And you?" That was when I truly understood. The danger wasn't just the warden lurking in the darkness. Something else was hunting me, and I had to act quickly before I lost everything I had fought for. I barely had time to react before the figure stepped fully into the light. A tall man, draped in dark clothing that seemed to merge with the shadows, emerged. His face was obscured by a hood, but his eyes burned bright, betraying a fierce intensity. "Get back!" I shouted, scrambling towards the far wall of the attic. My heart raced as I glanced at Elena. She looked just as alarmed. "What do you want?" "I told you," the figure said, his voice smooth but menacing. "The idol is mine, and you will give it to me willingly or I will take it." "Why would I give it to you?" I shot back, trying to sound braver than I felt. He took a step closer, and I could see the outline of his hands, fingers long and trembling, as if they were poised to reach for me. "You don't know what power it holds," he said softly, almost hypnotically. "Hand it over, and you might walk away with your life. But I couldn't just give it up. This idol connected me to the lost souls and their stories." I glanced down at it and felt a surge of warmth through my fingers, more intense than before. It flickered, as if sensing my resolve. "I'd rather fight," I declared, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. I turned to Elena for support, but she had shifted toward the door, her body tense like a coiled spring. "Trust me, he's dangerous," I warned her, but in that moment, the figure lunged forward. I ducked instinctively, feeling the rush of air as he swiped just above me. "Elena!" I yelled, scrambling to my feet. I could hear her moving behind me, but I didn't know where we could run. The attic was a small space, cluttered and disorganized. This was not a good place to face someone like him. "Move!" Elena shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. We darted toward the opposite end of the attic, my heart hammering as I fumbled over boxes and old furniture. But just as we neared a window, the figure blocked our path. I felt desperation clawing at my throat. "We need to get outside," I whispered urgently to Elena, who was already looking around for another option. Then I remembered the stumbling shadows, the lost souls. "Stay close," I said, moving back toward the figure. "If you think you can take me, you're mistaken." He raised an eyebrow, amused, then stepped forward again, this time quicker. My instincts kicked in, and I held the idol up high. It pulsed with light, momentarily stunning him. "Now," I shouted, grabbing Elena's wrist and bolting for the window. The glass was cold and hard against my palm as I tried to open it. The figure was recovering, his hands reaching out toward us. Just then I heard a loud crash behind us. A bolt of energy filled the room, and I turned around to see a swirl of color erupting from the direction of the door. The shadows seemed to have a life of their own, and for a brief moment they swirled around the figure. "Run!" Elena yelled again, urging me forward. We didn't waste a second, and when I felt the window swing open, we jumped through it together, landing on the soft grass below. As we landed, the light dimmed behind us, and I struggled to catch my breath. We had escaped, but I had no idea what had just happened or who the figure truly was. "Did you see that?" I panted, turning to Elena. "What was that?" Before she could respond, I noticed something shimmering on the ground where we had fallen. Bending down, I touched it, feeling a jolt shoot through me. That's when I saw it, the name inscribed on the object. It was connected to the stories and the key to the warden. But in seeing it, I realized one terrifying thing. The danger hadn't passed. It had only just begun. I struggled to catch my breath, my mind racing. The idol lay in my palm, its shimmering surface reflecting the pale moonlight. I blinked, trying to focus on the inscribed name. It was familiar, but I couldn't place it. I felt a wave of dread wash over me as I realized I had something significant. Something that could draw the darkness back to us. "Elena, look," I said, my voice trembling. I turned the object toward her, but her eyes were darting toward the shadows of the trees surrounding us. But she cut me off. "We need to move. Now." Her urgency snapped me back to reality. The figure had wanted this idol. Was he still inside? Were we safe? The thought churned my stomach. I shoved the object into my pocket and turned to face the woods. "Which way?" I asked, only half listening as Elena pointed toward the path leading to the nearby road. "Over there." She hesitated, biting her lip. "If we go into the woods, we might lose him, but what?" I pressed, feeling the anxiety creep back in. I could agree to face the woods, but the memories of what happened in the attic left me uneasy. "The shadows are connected to that guy. I saw it. They might try to follow us," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, afraid but unwilling to show it. We didn't have the luxury of time. Whatever dark power that figure wielded was out there, and the last thing I wanted was to tangle with him again. We started running, the wet grass slipping beneath our feet. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see him emerge from the darkness. My pulse raced as we ducked into the thickets, branches scratching at my arms and legs like claws. Each snap in the woods felt amplified, a reminder of the lurking danger. As we sprinted deeper into the trees, I could hear the distant sound of the road. My legs burned, and every breath felt labored. Just when I thought we might be safe, a flash of light danced through the trees, momentarily blinding me. "Elena, to your right!" I shouted, but as I did, I lost my footing and stumbled to the ground. I braced for impact as I hit the ground, but instead of pain, I felt a strange warmth spreading through me like an electric pulse. I looked down and saw the idol glowing faintly from my pocket. "What is happening?" I gasped, confused and scared. Elena knelt beside me, her face pale. "I don't know," she said, eyes wide and filled with dread. "But it feels like something's coming." That's when I heard it, a low growl echoing through the trees. The sound sent chills down my spine. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard, a mix of animalistic rage and something ethereal. "Elena, we have to get out. Now." I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline kicking in. We bolted toward the sound of the road, but an unnatural fog began to rise around us, thickening the air and obscuring our vision. What had I unleashed? I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever power I wielded through the idol was awakening something far worse than the figure we'd just escaped. "Stick close," I urged, clutching the idol tightly. A loud crash behind us echoed through the woods, and I turned just in time to see what looked like shadowy tendrils reaching out from the fog. I couldn't help but wonder if this was just the beginning of our fight with the darkness, or if our time had already run out. Stumbling through the encroaching fog, adrenaline surged in my veins. The shadows were coming for us, and the growling noise continued to echo ominously in the distance. Each thudding heartbeat felt like a countdown to something inevitable and terrifying. Panic rose with every rushed step I took, but I forced myself to focus on Elena beside me. She was keeping pace, her determination guiding us as we dashed towards the sliver of light that hinted at the road. "Elena, we need to reach that light," I shouted, my voice laced with urgency. She nodded, and together we fought through the choking fog, ignoring the dread that clung to our skin. As we approached the flicker of illumination, the darkness seemed to wail and retreat for the briefest moment. I could feel the idol pulsing against my chest, urging me to harness its power. But for what purpose? I didn't know how to wield whatever mysterious energy it contained, only that it felt all-consuming and alive. "Keep moving," Elena urged again. But I hesitated, feeling drawn to the warmth radiating from the idol. What if this was the key to fighting back? Before I could contemplate further, a clawing shadow broke through the fog directly in our path. A figure clad in darkness, its outline indistinct yet terrifying. "We have to stand our ground," I yelled, instinct kicking in, and I raised the idol just as the figure lunged at us. Light erupted from the idol like a beacon, pushing back the encroaching shadows, illuminating the face of the figure as it recoiled. My heart raced. It was the same faceless man from before. Desperation fueled my actions. "I command you to leave," I shouted, though doubt clawed at my throat. He hesitated, confusion playing across his features as the shimmering light forced back the shadows swirling around him. "You don't know what you're meddling with," he snarled, but I could sense the fear in his voice. "Elena," I called, "this is our chance." The shadows, unnerved and frantic, began to waver, torn between the relentless light and their master's growl. "Together," she shouted back, matching my resolve. We focused on the idol, pouring every ounce of determination into it. The glowing energy intensified, erupting in a flash of vibrant colors that lit the fog. If we could bind the darkness with this light, we might stand a chance. I felt the bond of the lost souls connecting, the energy flowing from the idol, merging with our intent. Then, just as hope surged within me, the ground beneath us shivered. I lost my footing. The lights flickered as if the whole scene teetered at the precipice of collapsing into chaos. I tumbled onto the damp earth, moments from being swallowed by darkness, when an ethereal force pulled me back, the idol steadying between my palms. "Keep focused," Eleanor shouted, her own hands outstretched as the shadows closed in again, moving like liquid night, reaching for any warmth left. With newfound determination, I raised the idol, pushing back against the shadows with sheer willpower. "I will not let you take any more lives," I cried, feeling the bond surge into something powerful. The shadows shrieked as if pierced by the light, and fissures seemed to break through the darkness, revealing faces, anguished but resolute. They rose up within the waves of darkness, their whispers weaving a tapestry of names, urging me to remember. Then the figure lunged again, fearsome and desperate. I stumbled, but Elena steadied me, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Stand strong, together." Within that storm of energy and shadows, I felt the truth click into place. The Warden's power wasn't unbounded. It thrived on fear, suffering, and the souls it claimed. "We name you. We break this hold," I yelled, emphasizing each word, channeling our fears and anger into the idol. Names erupted from our lips as echoes of forgotten hopes and dreams, combined with the flashes of anger, desperation, and sorrow. The darkness recoiled as if struck. Against the backdrop of chaos, something beautiful began to materialize. The tendrils of shadows twisted and shrieked, but the tide had turned. The idol surged in response, as if drawing strength from the faces emerging from the dark, a resolve born out of years of anguish, now united against the Warden. With a final surge of light, I shouted, "No more! You do not own us!" The air vibrated, and the shadows began to dissolve. The dark figure writhed in fury. I opened my eyes, the pulse of the world around me changing. Shadows scattered like smoke, and I stood tangled in the light of the idol, breaths coming in ragged gasps. But there, at the edge of the clearing, the darkness began to curl into itself, twisting and morphing, leaving behind only fading whispers. Elena and I exchanged a glance, grim, relieved, but with that knowledge of an unfinished battle looming in the shadows. "Did we really do it?" she asked, her breath still catching in her throat. "I don't know," I replied, uncertainty lacing my words. "But he won't be gone forever." The weight of that truth loomed heavily between us. We made our way from the woods, hearts still racing, but the fog began to lift, revealing more than just trees and darkness. We emerged onto the road, uncertainty flaring once more at the thought of what was to come. As dawn painted the horizon in hues of orange and pink, I couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was just a fragment of a larger struggle. The questions of what haunted those woods and who resided in the dark hadn't vanished like the shadows. They lingered, an unsettling whisper of the unknown. I had freed the souls bonded by the idol, but darker truths still lurked in the depths of the forest. "Where do we go from here?" I murmured, looking to Elena, who only shook her head in equal uncertainty. And deep down, a whisper of the warden remained, a reminder that while we may have escaped that night, something else still watched with hungry eyes. The true battle for souls had merely begun,